Thank you for joining us for Tracking the Tropics. A new hurricane season 2024 is upon us. I'm Chief Meteorologist Donnie Cox, along with meteorologist Les Still, Lana Foss, and Greg Carlton. We're glad to have you with us for details of the upcoming hurricane season. And, you know, when we stop and look at it, hurricane season for us runs all year round, but we've been using that time to track the changes that will impact us this year.
Yeah, one thing we will keep an eye on what's going on in the Pacific Ocean and the equatorial waters there, whether it's an El Nino or La Nina. We was an El Nino through the winter. That's why we didn't get the snow here in eastern North Carolina. But now we're switching to the La Nina, and that's going to have major impacts on this tropical season.
And we're already seeing sea surface temperatures that are above normal so far, especially in the Gulf Coast. And one of the biggest factors of hurricane formation is those warm temperatures.
Yeah, warm temperatures is a big threshold to get a hurricane going. And also, like Les said, we have to keep an eye on what's going on in the Pacific. You can see that cooler pool of water in the tropical Pacific. That shows we're heading into La Nina. La Nina typically means less shear for us in the Atlantic, which means hurricanes could form easier.
And of course, we always look at the forecast. That's always a very important early idea of what the thinking is. And you can see here, normally 14 named storms, and North Carolina State came out 15 to 20. In fact, if you look at all those numbers, well above normal lists.
Yeah, and we also want to keep our eye on are the major hurricane numbers for us here. And there's another wave we keep watching out of the Pacific Ocean. That is the Julian oscillation. When it's in phases 8, 1, and especially 2 and 3, that's when we get the major hurricanes, and you can see we may be in that phase a lot this year.
And of course, we'll continue to keep an eye on that because of the fact is we go through the season, it only takes one storm. It's not just going through the list like you see here, but again, what you can expect as we go through the next few months is watching all of these storms because it takes just one. The Hurricane Center says this, the Weather Service says this, it's because it is very important to remember one storm can create the damage for the whole year.
Andrew in 1992 was the only storm to make landfall.
Exactly. Hey, Hurricane Dorian was one of those storms that we're talking about. It impacted eastern Carolina on September the 5th and 6th of 2019. And I had a chance to go out and check out the hardest hit area in Ocracoke.
Well, it looked good at 7 that morning, but then there was no water over in Swan Quarter. And when there's no water there, I mean, it was coming over here, and it just came.
A maritime weather station reported 89-mile-per-hour winds. The surge was 4 to 7 feet. The water flooding Tommy Hutcherson's store.
Got all new refrigeration cases and new ice machines outside and a new floor in the store, and have changed the total look of the store.
The Village Craftsman has markers showing the water heights of previous storms, with Dorian now at the top.
One of my biggest impressions of Dorian was having everything from our school dumped into the field over here, and it was really hard to see.
Jenny Owens is the principal of Ocracoke School.
The school is here for everyone, and everyone is here for the school, and that's a beautiful feeling.
Principal Owens showed us the new, the improved, and some of the old.
The gym has not been raised. It's original. We're working to get a new floor. Our floor was destroyed in the hurricane. We have a health science teacher now, so she has her own space. We were able to furnish the science with resources that are necessary to really make classes like our earth science classes, our earth and environmental, our biology, to really shine, to do experiments and to do hands-on learning. This is the elementary building. So again, this was raised, but it was not redone except for the ground floor.
Now the students at Ocracoke School are back on bike and bus to a much improved facility. Even the dolphin mascot that weathered many storms in front of the school is displayed in the new facility.
We know Dorian happened, it was devastating, it was awful, and now we can move ahead and look ahead.
And it's great to see the school back open and the kids back in school. The 2023 school year was the first year back after the facility was rebuilt at Ocracoke School. Here's some hurricane trivia for you. Hurricanes are named alphabetically with female and male names alternating. Now, when did we start using this way to name the storms? Was it A, 1890, B, 1938, C, 1953, or D, 1979? And the correct answer is 1979.
Major progress continues to be made on the new Stanley White Recreation Center in New Bern. It's been about 6 years since Hurricane Florence flooded out the previous 43-year-old facility. I recently stopped by to see how construction of the new structure is progressing.
Right now, we're slated to be completed by the end of 2024.
The director of the New Bern Park and Recreation says construction of the new and improved Stanley White Rec Center is right on schedule. We're here at the footprint of the old facility. The problem was that it was in a floodplain. Now, the residents still wanted to keep it within the same community. The final solution was to move it 670 feet that way to its new location. Storm resiliency was a big consideration that went into the design of the new structure. Nearly 130 precast concrete panels make up the exterior walls. The panels are engineered to be able to withstand about 5,000 pounds per square inch of pressure while also remaining watertight. This means the new center could now serve as an evacuation shelter for the Duffy Field community if needed. Kerry says you'll immediately notice two big improvements as soon as you walk in.
The double gym and then the elevated walking track.
Other new features include more restrooms than before, along with separate cardio and weight rooms on the second floor, which will be accessible by an elevator. Several ideas are being incorporated into the new building to link it with the old facility and the history of the greater Duffy Field community. This steel arch, which was in the foyer of the old building, will now sit on a pedestal at the entrance of the new facility. Plus, a history wall is being incorporated.
It's going to be 40 feet long and 10 feet high. And so we're looking to have firms help us with designing that and to bring in some of the history of Stanley White himself, the Duffy Field area, as well as history on the Omega Center.
Many eagerly watching the construction site are hoping this concrete rectangle in the front will be a new pool. However, that is not the case. It will serve as an engineered drainage pond that will regulate the flow of runoff water into the city's drainage system. Now, everybody with the city is hoping this hurricane season doesn't have too much impact on the construction timetable. They're hoping to be able to get this open by the end of this year. Now, we've just learned that two consulting firms have been selected for this History Wall project. The design element of North Carolina, they are going to be one of the ones that are helping out with that, as well as another firm that is going to be presenting their ideas of how things are going to play out. Here's a little hurricane trivia for you. In what year were non-phonetic alphabet names first officially assigned to the Atlantic tropical systems? Was it A, 1941, B, 1945, C, 1953, or D, 1964? And the correct answer is 1953.
And we might see an occasional tornado spinning up during a hurricane, but many areas do not have dedicated warning sirens. News 12's Rebecca McGann talked with Craven County's Emergency Services Director about what they rely on instead.
Director Stanley Kite says even if there were sirens, they likely wouldn't be heard unless there were a lot of them, and the county isn't eligible for the FEMA grants that would fund enough sirens to make a difference. There are alarms at fire stations, but Kite says when the county tried to use those for severe weather warnings, it created more confusion than it helped.
A lot of people moving into the area, they heard it, but they didn't know what it meant. They didn't know how to separate a weather alert from an emergency such as a motor vehicle accident or a structure fire.
Kite says the #1 way to alert the public is a NOAA weather alert radio, and emergency management highly encourages every home and business has one tuned to their area for the most accurate alerts and warnings. It'll play a loud series of beeps as soon as a warning is issued, and there are attachments or modifications you can get for people with disabilities.
It can work like a smoke detector. It can work at night while you sleep. It doesn't have to be noisy or disruptive. It has been one of the most reliable sources that we have found to get you 24/7, 365 notices of something going on.
While the city of New Bern typically doesn't handle alerting the public to severe weather, they have resources to help residents prepare.
There are checklists that you can download that not only help you prepare for the storm, but they also give some advice on what to do after the storm.
And though hurricane season is just beginning, Kite says it's never too early to get ready.
Always be prepared. You need to make a plan now. You don't need to wait until the storm is here or until an event is here. Just start thinking about what you need to do for you and your family, where you're going to go, where you're going to relocate if you need to relocate, what items do you need to have. You need to be able to sustain on your own without being able to go to the grocery store or the drugstore.
And that's Rebecca McGann reporting. By the way, you need to make sure you have everything that you need during the season. That also includes knowing your evacuation zones, and Grant Carlton breaks those down for you.
Yeah, Donnie, and here in eastern North Carolina, we have seemingly endless bodies of water from the ocean to the rivers, and that could make knowing your evacuation zone a little bit tricky. So here's a few tips to help you find yours. Before disaster even has a chance to be on our doorstep this hurricane season, it's important to prepare now. And one of the best ways to prepare is knowing your evacuation zone. Here in North Carolina, like many other states, we have a tiered evacuation system that helps efficiently highlight the areas most vulnerable to flooding, not only from storm surge, but from heavy rain as well. If a storm strikes, state and local officials will be the ones to issue evacuation orders. Areas in red, Zone A, are typically the ones to evacuate first, followed by Zone B, Zone C, etc. It's important to know your zone now, not only to know if you're someone who needs to evacuate, but also to get a better understanding of your area's potential risk to hurricanes. We sat down with Brooke White and Keith Boyd, two New Bern locals who know firsthand the importance of evacuations. Brooke owned Sound Fitness in New Bern, but it lost her original gym due to Florence.
Our original location was located on Airport Road in James City, and it was unfortunately lost in the hurricane of 2018, Hurricane Florence.
Even though Brooke's life and gym are back to a sense of normalcy, she still has some really good advice for those debating on evacuating.
I would definitely say the safe thing is to evacuate, heed the warnings, and find a safe place to shelter.
Half of that first story, the garage section, I mean, right down to the concrete blocks, was gone, just taken away.
Keith's parents lived in their family home just a block away and also had to evacuate the Riverside community of New Bern. Keith says the process of evacuating can be a challenge itself, and getting back home may take longer than you think.
So wherever you're going, whether it's closer or further away, you need to be prepared kind of for the long haul.
Knowing your location's evacuation zone and route is important, and so is learning about the process. KnowYourZone.nc.gov is the best resource for all your questions, and also includes an interactive map where you can find out which zone you live in simply by entering in your address. Well, which of the following pairs of Atlantic hurricane names are the first ones to be retired? Was it A, Carol and Hazel, B, Connie and Diane, C, Audrey and Janet, or D, Agnes and Elena? Well, if you said A, Carol and Hazel, you would be correct, both in 1954, with Hazel being the strongest and only Category 4 storm to hit the coast of North Carolina.
Rip currents are one of the deadliest hazards along the coast. A hurricane thousands of miles away can still be dangerous at shore. And here's how to stay safe before you go to the beach.
It's extremely important that you know the forecast before you go to the beach. If it's a red flag day, you really shouldn't be in the water. And unlike thunderstorms or tornadoes that you can see and you can kind of anticipate the threat, rip currents are not like that.
Rip currents are one of the most dangerous factors that comes with hurricane season. Rip currents form at sandbar breaks, pulling water away from the shore. You can visually see a rip current by looking for a calm section of the sea in the midst of the waves. While that looks like the best place to swim at, it is dangerous. Lifeguards have flags they use to warn you of rip current threats. There's red, yellow, and green. Red means severe, yellow moderate, and green low. I spoke with Eric Hayden, the warning coordination meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Newport, about how they create a rip current forecast.
So we look at current conditions, what is actually happening with the tides, and also reports via the lifeguards. We look at a lot of current conditions. Are we having strong rip currents? What's the swell direction, period, and things like that.
Even if you have sunny skies at shore, a hurricane thousands of miles out to sea can still be dangerous and take lives of those unaware. Hurricane Lorenzo is a great example, and Eric explains why.
Do you remember Hurricane Lorenzo? That was in October. It was more than 2,000 miles away, and we lost 4 people in the Carolinas and 8 people up and down the East Coast because of rip currents. Since 2000, almost 200 people have died because of rip currents. The next closest is 41 with tornadoes and flooding 24.
If you are caught in a rip current, stay calm and do not swim against it. Swim left, right, or parallel to escape it. A rip current pulls you out, not under. Always be aware of your threats during hurricane season. Here's some hurricane trivia for you. How many name lists are used in rotation for the Atlantic hurricane season? Is it A, they create a new list every year, B, 5, C, 6, or D, 7? Well, if you said C, 6, then you would be correct.
Well, with the threat of destruction, homeowners insurance comes into focus every hurricane season. This year, homeowners insurance rate hike proposals got the attention of people all across the state, especially in our coastal communities where premiums could double. News 12's Tyler Harding sat down with the North Carolina Insurance Commissioner to find out what's at stake and why there's a difference for inland compared to coastal areas.
When they're looking at facing a spike in their insurance premiums, that really hurts.
Thousands of homeowners in coastal communities pay for a peace of mind, knowing their home is insured, but now fewer can afford it.
We have the most companies willing to write automobile insurance, much fewer companies that are willing to write homeowners.
According to the Department of Insurance, homeowners in coastal communities pay more than $5,000 a year for insurance, compared to the state average of nearly $2,000.
The hurricanes play a big part in it too.
A request this year by the NC Rate Bureau, essentially a non-government agency representing insurance companies, would nearly double premiums in these coastal counties, while most inland areas would get a smaller increase.
They have rating areas for all over the state. Sometimes it's down to certain zip codes. And the rating areas are based on the Rate Bureau's past claims experience, the money they paid out in claims to that particular area over the past number of years.
A greater number of storms, to the amount of catastrophic damage, even changes in the climate are factors in the proposal and current rates. North Carolina Insurance Commissioner Mike Causey says he's there to put a stop to it.
When I said no, I based that on state law. I said, in my opinion, the request was excessive and unfairly discriminatory to certain sections of our state.
He says around 25,000 homeowners, mostly along the coast, spoke out against the proposal.
Almost every other person that wrote in said that they could barely afford groceries some weeks because the groceries keep going up every week. The local taxes have gone up.
What he's hearing from insurance company leaders is different.
They all tell me they're losing money on homeowners. They're paying out for every dollar they bring in premiums, they're paying out $1.15 to $1.30 or 40 cents on claims, and that you can't stay in business like that.
Other elements include inflation, scammers, and people filing smaller claims, some worth only a few $1,000s.
I think people have to look at having higher deductibles and using insurance for major damage catastrophes.
Like during Hurricane Florence in 2018, there were 23 disaster counties in our state. Commissioner Causey says 88,000 homeowners lost everything because they didn't have flood insurance. He says one option is the North Carolina Joint Underwriters, essentially an association of insurance companies focused on insurable properties. He says this group insures close to 70% of homes in coastal areas.
Take a look, shop around, compare, look at having higher deductibles and certainly replacement value coverage on automobiles and your contents of your home, because that's worth its weight in gold.
Reporting along the coast, Tyler Hardin, News 12.
Now, in recent years, there's been a cap of insurance premiums at 10%. The future rate will be decided in a court hearing in October. Well, here's some hurricane trivia for you. What is the name hurricane derived from? Is it A, sugarcane, B, Cabal god of evil, C, a philosopher in ancient Rome, or D, an alcoholic drink? And the correct answer is a Kabul god of evil.
As weather impacts the communities across our state, homeowners look for ways to protect their properties. According to weather.gov, Hurricane Florence flooded 75,000 buildings. News 12's Biljana Garland talked to homeowners and senior advisors of Rebuild NC about raising the process.
The most important reason to elevate a house is so that this family, when they move back home, they won't have to worry about the next storm that could come along.
This is Richard Trumper with Disaster Recovery. He's at a house on Simmons Street in New Bern, ravaged by Hurricane Florence in 2018. It happened to another family nearby.
We lost clothing, we lost furniture.
Bill and Alyssa Loopold moved into their home in 2003.
The whole house had to be gutted.
The hurricane left them with $150,000 in damages.
I got a bad immune system. They wouldn't even allow me in there because of it. There was black mold everywhere inside that house.
They applied to a county home elevation program. 2 months later, their home was raised at least 5 feet higher for free.
It's all been redone.
The Simmons Street home now getting the same treatment.
This home is going to be accessible, so a handicap accessible home.
Trumper says the Rebuild NC program is a 4 to 5 month process. First, engineers evaluate what the home needs.
Well, we've got our regular foundation vents, but down at the bottom are our flood vents. So if there is any water ever on this site, water can get underneath the house and then come right back out without doing damage to the foundation.
While some homes are built on piers, Trumper says a masonry foundation is the sturdiest choice.
Putting it up on a platform should help prevent them losing air conditioning after a hurricane.
While the Rebuild NC program is now closed, he recommends checking out private companies. Meanwhile, he says anyone can qualify for some supplemental funding through the National Flood Insurance Program.
If there's ever a flooding incident in this neighborhood in the future, this family won't have to worry about being flooded out of their home.
In Craven County, Biljana Garland, News 12.
Did you know on July 17, 1943, Joseph Duckworth made history by doing what? By A, flying a plane into the eye of a hurricane, B, accurately predicting the hurricane's path, C, stopping the hurricane by effectively cloud seeding, causing it to dissipate, or D, rescuing a group of school children from a storm surge. And the answer is flying his plane into the eye of a hurricane. And you just need to make sure that you're prepared as we enter the 2024 hurricane season, and there's many things you need to do. One of those is to make sure you have the multiple ways to get the watches and warnings. This would be one of those with the antenna up. On your NOAA weather radio, it means it's over the air, so it comes out instantaneously. Just as soon as the Weather Service hits the warning, this radio will go off, but you don't need to just stick to one thing.
Yeah, we definitely have the Storm Track 12 weather app, which is a great way to get alerts if the power goes out or anything like that. And we update it as soon as the National Weather Service gives us any updates.
And it is good to have multiple ways to get alerts. And you can also expect us to update social media, not only with the forecast, but to help you be prepared all season long.
And of course, you don't forget about over-the-air television. And of course, we've got it streaming on our website as well. So as soon as a warning or watch is issued, we're going to be alerting you to that severe weather danger.
And so it looks like as we enter the 2024 hurricane season, we want you to be prepared. All four of us will be here covering all of the storms. As Les just mentioned, we'll be on air. And of course, as Grant mentioned, we'll be on social media, on the app. We'll just be here to make sure that you're covered. We appreciate you joining us for this broadcast of Tracking the Tropics 2024.